that were trying to form. One was forming off the Chesapeake, a couple others. It's not uncommon for us to see that ocean effect snow out there. I remember some Arctic outbreaks where ocean effect snow has made it down to the east coast of Florida. You get these really big cold air masses. They can do that sometimes and definitely bring some lake effect, ocean effect, sound effect, river effect, lake effect. It's just a body of water basically with cold air spilling over it. Speaking of snow, which was, I don't want to get people excited, but we're 10 days out from Christmas, Tim. 10 days from today. And people are already starting to ask and look, what is Christmas going to look like here in the Carolinas? So I think I can safely say it's not, I will go on a limb. We will not have a white Christmas in Charlotte. But what are your thoughts about the pattern and how warm or not warm it could be? Because it's 10 days. It's kind of in that range where we have a basic idea of what could happen.
Well, I agree with you that we're not going to have a white Christmas, and that's never fun to say. And we don't say it to be mean. It just doesn't happen, and it's not happening this year either. I will say I'm a little intrigued by whether or not we're going to be warm. The prevailing wisdom the last couple of days or couple of weeks has been, it's going to be so warm. You won't even believe how warm it is. Well, there is some chance that actually there could be a little troughing in New England, and maybe we could actually see some of that wedginess or the cool air slipping down the East Coast. So I don't think we're going to have an outbreak of Arctic air or anything, but to say we're going to be warm might not be accurate. Maybe it's only in the 40s or maybe it's in the low 50s or something. I think that might be more realistic than to think about upper 60s to low 70s. No winter weather, but probably you're not too warm and you're probably not too frigid either, is the way it looks to me right now.
I agree, because I started looking at the long range and I noticed there was some hints of some catting trying to come down a couple times. So yeah, it's tough to say. I wouldn't say 70 for sure, but I'm going to go mild right now and just hedge my bets and say, hey, maybe close to 60. But I would not be shocked if you mentioned that we get a backdoor front. And even if it's a dry wedge, we end up with like low 50s, upper 40s, which would be seasonable, which would be near normal for this time of year. I certainly don't think it'll be 70, like the crazy hot, Christmases that we've had in the past decade or so.
We've done that.
But certainly not cold either. It seems like we have one or the other, Tim. It's either frigid, like it was in 2022, or 2020 it was cold for Christmas, or it's like 70 degrees. A normal Christmas would be kind of nice, actually.
Yeah, well, it's been a cold December. For us, it's our 9th coldest start. We've been 8 degrees below average so far, and every morning has been freezing or below. So we've had our share so far.
That's a great stat. All right, everybody, stick around. We're going to have more breaking news on that fire coming out of Salisbury, coming up with Vanessa in just a few minutes. Stick around.
Hey folks, thanks so much for joining us for Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus here. We continue to follow breaking news at this hour out of Salisbury, North Carolina, where we've just gotten word from authorities up there that 11 firefighters have been injured following an explosion that happened at a home. A few details that we're getting right now. You can see some of the information Salisbury Fire has released. So you can see this happened just before 5 o'clock. There was a fire that was dispatched. You could see many crews to Laurel Street, and then they say that they found heavy fire conditions at this single family home. They started putting out the fire, and that's when they say a gas line exploded inside the residence. There was some sort of issue with the structure itself. Of course, as you can imagine, after an explosion, the roof ended up collapsing. And because of that situation, the explosion and the roof collapsing, they say 11 firefighters were injured, transported to the hospital for more treatment. You can see they have more information that they're promising out of Salisbury Fire. We want to let you know that we're getting word of an update, a briefing that's happening within, I'd say, the next half hour or so. We've got a crew on the way to the scene, and we also have our crews that are going to be heading to this separate location where we're told this actual briefing is going to happen, because we're told those are going to be two different areas. So just once again, wanted to reiterate that we continue to follow this very closely here on Live Impact News. Once again, out of Salisbury, North Carolina, a fire reported just before 5 o'clock, devolving into an explosion after a gas line ruptures and explodes, sending 11 firefighters to the hospital. Independently, we're working on kind of getting our eyes on this ourselves, but I know that our chief meteorologist, Brad Panovich, who just stepped away after doing the weather stream just now, mentioned that he saw that plume of smoke from that scene actually on radar, which is not unusual to see. In fact, usually when we see a large fire scene, sometimes we'll see the plume show up on radar. We know that sometimes birds will show up on radar. So radar is not just, weather phenomena, if you will, but also, can indicate large plumes of smoke. So seemingly a notable scene, and one that we will continue to follow. Once again, please stay with us. At 7:30 is when that update is set to happen. So we're going to watch the feed where that's going to come in. As soon as that comes up live, we will bring that to you live here on Live Impact. But just a little bit more detail about the area itself. I did have this pulled up on a map earlier, and bear with me, working a little bit under technology right now with some issues on my computer. But 1100 Laurel Street. So that's the block, and actually a producer, James, is pulling this up for us, so thank you for that. You get an idea of where this is. It's actually not too far from the interstate, so I wonder if there are any interstate drivers passing by that are noticing the scene. I don't know what our NCDOT camera situation is out there, James.
I have looked, Vanessa,
okay,
and there is nothing visible from the DOT cameras. It appears that the interstate is open, because to your point, and here comes the Google map for everybody at home, you can see we're not far from the interstate. We're between US 29 and Interstate 85, just here adjacent to downtown Salisbury, just adjacent to the train tracks, not too far from the North Carolina Transportation Museum.
Okay, so there you have it. And like we mentioned, this is seemingly a residential area. So we mentioned this was a single family home according to the fire department, and just based on the layout of the streets that you see kind of around here, it looks like subdivision-esque, if you will. Looks like there are going to be multiple homes from what I can tell from the Google Maps look of this area. Also seeing what appears to be some sort of blockage on side streets around the area, for example, Long Street. I actually think that little pop of yellow, nope, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the traffic map.
I missaw it, but on my maps, I'm actually starting to see some blockages on kind of the thoroughfare leading into the side street where this is happening. So I could imagine, based on the scene, that there's probably some sort of emergency response
I'm sure
blocking the road before you even get to the area. So just a heads up for drivers who might be in that area. I'm actually seeing Long Street appears to be closed in the area of Laurel Street. Once again, Laurel Street is where the actual explosion happened. The cross street with Long is where we're actually starting to see the closures, with no indications of why there's a closure, which tells me it's probably related to this emergency scene.
Yeah, and I know our viewers at home might be seeing some green on the traffic map, Vanessa, and I'm sure you've run into this too. Sometimes green it's tricked into thinking there's no traffic there because the road is empty.
Yeah.
So don't be confused if you see green on the map. There could still be a closure there. Certainly lots of activity, very active scene at this hour.
Indeed. One more thing I wanted to check, and just bear with me because I saw it just as we were coming on the air here, and I just want to make sure that it's not any additional information that we haven't gotten. Okay. It looks like this is the same press release that we got from Salisbury Fire. I saw just before hopping on the feed here with y'all that Rowan County Emergency Services had posted an update. So I just wanted to make sure that there weren't additional details in that press release that we didn't see in the Salisbury Fire one. It looks like these are identical press releases with understandably a lot of folks who are weighing in on the comments on these posts, praying for the firefighters who are injured. Really scary situation, and
Yeah.
I don't know if Brad was able to weigh in on anything.
He
I know
was,
you
so
were with
on-
Brad on that stream.
On Live Impact Weather, Brad Panovich and Tim Buckley, our chief meteorologist in Greensboro, North Carolina, Salisbury being in between these two
Yeah.
locations. You know, it's too early to know for sure, Vanessa, what caused this fire or what caused the gas line to rupture, but obviously this was the coldest morning of the whole year for many of us, so that brings to mind heating elements, things that sometimes can cause fires in some unfortunate situations. Again, it's too early to know what was the cause of this ongoing situation, but our two meteorologists put their meteorologist hat on, of course, and that's what they were thinking about, Vanessa. They were thinking, wow, it is so cold outside that can certainly create a fire hazard.
And that's a really good point, because I think about all the times, you know, when we deal with weather-related impacts and how us as people try to kind of navigate those impacts, whether it's a hurricane, for example, that causes massive power outages. There are always lots of caveats to how you're going to kind of take care of yourself in the aftermath of that. So like if you have severe cold, maybe there is some sort of heating element that might be brought into the picture. And I just think about, you know, when you talk about generators and all that stuff, there's a lot of stuff that can happen with that. But once again, this was a gas line that ruptured, and I'll be interested to see exactly how that happened, and no doubt there will be some sort of investigation into that, especially given the gravity of the situation. So once again, folks, if you're just joining us here on Live Impact, breaking news we're following at this hour. 11 firefighters injured at the hospital as we speak following this explosion at a home in Salisbury, North Carolina. This is a situation that started as a fire. Gas line ruptured, exploded, as we mentioned, and the roof collapsed. We don't know whether the roof collapse was the primary cause of the injuries to the firefighters or if it was the explosion itself. That's something that is set to be sorted out. And I'd say about 20 minutes when this press conference starts with Salisbury fire officials. This is happening at a firehouse, we're told, where this briefing will happen, separate from where the Laurel Street incident actually took place. So stay tuned for that. Our crews are headed that way. I know another big issue that we've been following here, headline that is national in nature. Of course, a lot of folks who are kind of reeling following that Brown University shooting over the weekend. We just got some new information, some new video, in fact, showing a person of interest. So let's go ahead and check in with what we know about the situation as that manhunt does continue now in a third day searching for whoever committed the shooting.
Right now, the manhunt continues for the person responsible for the mass shooting here at Brown University. A short time ago, police releasing new images and videos of a person of interest as the efforts continue to try and track down the gunman. An unidentified killer is still on the loose after a mass shooting Saturday at Brown University.
A lot of people found a lot of relief in knowing that the authorities had caught this person and recovered the weapons that this person may have used, and now to know that he may still be on the street is extremely scary.
The community in Providence, Rhode Island, on edge from the whiplash.
Obviously, we're disappointed that the person of interest who had been detained needed to be released because of the evidence that had been examined, and it's a setback, to be clear. We don't believe that there is an imminent threat to public safety here in the city of Providence.
While authorities continue to try and identify the motive behind the attack and the person in this brief video clip that they believe is connected to the shooting, those on the Ivy League campus are in mourning.
What I do know is that Brown's grieving, I'm grieving.
Freshman Kamari Mann says one of the victims was his roommate.
Just a ball of joy. ball of energy. The loss of him would be felt throughout this community because his soul truly did reverberate throughout the community.
Vice President J.D. Vance called the student a brilliant young man who dreamed of being a surgeon. And in a statement posted about victim Ella Cook, said our country has lost one of its bright young stars. And tonight there is an increased law enforcement presence here at Brown University as well as across Providence. This happening as throughout the day we saw evidence teams going through these neighborhoods looking for any clues that could help them to track down the shooter. Live in Providence, Rhode Island, I'm Michael Yoshida.
Okay, and folks, we do want to also bring to you that full update from officials. We will do so after a quick 2-minute break. And don't forget, we do continue to follow that breaking news out of Salisbury, where 11 firefighters have been injured following that explosion at a home as these firefighters were trying to put out a fire at the home. So we're about, I'd say, 19 minutes away from 18 minutes at this point from the briefing that fire officials are set to give at a nearby firehouse. Our crew on the way to the scene as well. So we'll have the very latest for you in just moments. So stick with us here on Live Impact News. And welcome back as we continue to follow this breaking news out of Salisbury, North Carolina. You're watching Live Impact News right now. We are hearing that 11 firefighters have been injured after an explosion, and we're told that this happened as firefighters were fighting a fire at a single-family home on Laurel Street, specifically the 1100 block of Laurel Street. In fact, it's not too far from I-85, so if you know anyone who's passing by that area on the interstate, it is possible you're seeing a large plume of smoke. And I only say that because our chief meteorologist, Brad Panovich, several moments ago talked about seeing the actual plume of smoke from that fire on his radar. So certainly a situation we're following as far as multiple impacts, not just to the firefighters who are injured, who of course we hope will be okay. We're still waiting to hear conditions, but also impacts to folks in the neighborhood. We don't know if there's a remaining risk to neighbors around here. And it is important to point out because there was a gas leak explosion. So the gas line in this house where they were fighting this fire apparently ruptured and exploded, caused the roof to collapse. And so that is how the firefighters were actually injured. We're told they are at the hospital right now getting treatment. Once again, we don't know their conditions. And we also don't know whether the explosion was the primary cause of their injuries or if it was when the roof collapsed. We have about 15 minutes to go until we get an update from fire officials. So we have a crew headed to the actual scene on Laurel Street. We also have a crew headed to the firehouse where we're hearing this actual update from officials will happen. Once again, that is coming up at 7:30, so be sure that we'll bring that to you live as soon as it comes live on the feed that we're monitoring right now, and we'll have that for you here on Live Impact News. Meantime, as we mentioned before the break, we do continue to follow the latest out of Providence, Rhode Island, where we are seeing a continued manhunt for whoever committed the shooting at the university over the weekend. Deadly shooting, unfortunately, multiple others injured. And we just heard a recap, but we wanted to dive deeper into the new footage that we're getting from authorities. There was some surveillance video and ring camera footage that was just released showing who authorities they say believe is a person of interest. And you might remember they actually had somebody in custody for a certain period of time over the weekend. They say they ended up releasing that person, saying that the investigation was taking them in a different direction. So they didn't elaborate on that much more, other than to have essentially indicate that the person they had in custody was not the person they were looking for. So this new information, plus we wanted to bring you this extended update from officials. And once again, the second we get something brand new on this Salisbury explosion, we will hop right in with that very latest information.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm Providence Mayor Brett Smiley. In a few moments, we will hear from Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee, Providence Police Chief Colonel Oscar Perez, and then Ted Dock, Special Agent in Charge from the FBI. I'm going to start with a brief update, and then just to let folks know about the work that we continue to do to reassure residents in Providence that they're safe in their community, and we are grateful for all of the assistance that we have continued to receive. As we announced last night, we would be providing enhanced police coverage throughout the Brown community, throughout the East Side, and really throughout the city of Providence. And what residents and neighbors saw today was exactly that. There was specific enhanced coverage in Fox Point, Whale Street, and on Hope Street, which are the commercial districts in the area. And I want to express the city's profound gratitude to the following departments who provided mutual assistance and additional coverage today. First and foremost, the Rhode Island State Police have been excellent partners, and I'm grateful for the governor of making sure that those resources are available to us here in Providence. But we are also assisted today by friends from neighboring communities here in Rhode Island, which is a terrific way in which our colleagues from throughout Rhode Island have been assisting. Today we had extra help from North Kingstown, North Providence, East Providence, Central Falls, and Pawtucket. Many other communities have offered to help, and we expect to take that help in the days to come. But through that mutual assistance of our neighboring communities, we were able to provide that additional coverage. Secondly, we were able to provide coverage to our schools today. We did have school here in Providence. I'm glad we had school today in Providence. We'll have school tomorrow in Providence. This is the last week of the semester, and it's important for kids to be in school, and so we're encouraging parents to do what's right for their family. We understand that there are probably difficult conversations happening at the kitchen table right now, but if you're comfortable, you should send your kid to school. Providence Public Schools are open, and we have police coverage at drop-off and pickup times to provide that extra sense of safety and security for our families. I spent the morning out at our schools too in the neighborhood to be there for our parents, and they certainly were glad to see an officer helping out. And so, as we've said many times, but it's important to continue to say we're so grateful for the tireless effort of law enforcement, not just to assist with the investigation, but to help all of us feel safe in our home. At this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to our Governor Dan McKee.
Thanks, Mayor. And just like all of us, we want to see the individual that pulled the trigger on these young kids identified, apprehended, and brought to justice. I can tell you from the state level, we're continuing to coordinate our state police and instructed the colonel to make sure that all the resources that are available are being employed through the direction of the mayor, but that partnership is incredibly important. I also know that the schools are not only being impacted on the higher education in Providence, and also the K through 12, but I also have heard and have been in contact with our Commissioner of Higher Education, Shannon Gilkey, along with our Commissioner of K through 12, Angelica Infante Green, to make sure that we are reassessing all safety issues in all our schools in the state of Rhode Island, and more to come on that. The issues that have to do with mental health, coordinating around the state through our higher ed and through our K through 12. I've assigned Director Rick Leclerc to make sure that they're coordinating all of the social services, all the mental health help that's out there, so that we can kind of also deliver that on a statewide basis. I was at Family Services Rhode Island today on Hope Street, and just seeing what they're doing, and it's being duplicated all around the state of Rhode Island. So I think it's important that we do everything we can out of the governor's office to support what's happening at Brown, the community of Brown, Providence, but also knowing that this is impacting on a statewide basis. So we're deploying that efforts to make the effort to let people know that we want to do everything we can so they can be safe and feel safe. And then finally, we want to make sure that all Rhode Islanders know that everything that is physically possible is being done, and partnering in with our federal, the FBI, our state law enforcement, and also the local law enforcement to bring an individual and identify and bring that person to justice. We also have been involved in communicating with the League of Cities and Towns today through Randy Rossi. They've sent out a message to deploy their vehicles, their police vehicles, at the beginning of school day, at the end of the school day, all around the state of Rhode Island, to again show that we're serious about having people and the families feel safe, and that everything that's being done to make sure that happens on a statewide basis, because this has become a statewide issue that is being impacted families and people throughout the state of Rhode Island. Mayor?
Now we'll hear from Colonel Oscar Perez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here again. Here we are once again to provide you some of the highlights and the progress that the Providence Police Department, along with several agencies, have gone together and stepped up to come up to this. I want to remind you that this is a very active investigation, very complex investigation, and it's the dedicated work of the men and women of the Providence Police Department, the Detective Division, the Community Response Team, the Special Response Team. It's all hands on deck. And on top of it all, you have the state police who's assisting us, and every other federal partner that has been in this building for several hours. And I want to commend and applaud them for the work that they have done. And that includes the FBI, HSI, ATF, the IRS, the marshals, and several other agencies, analysts that are here. So it's pretty active, because we want to make sure, as the governor stated, as the mayor stated, to make sure that we identify this individual and bring him to justice. Our work that initiated today and continues to initiate for a while since it started. We're at the 49th hour, and there's no one that wants to put this individual in handcuffs than us. So this has brought us to a new lead, which I momentarily will probably be able to provide you with. That's going to include video of this individual, as well as photos of this individual. We're asking the public for assistance to be able to identify this individual. The photos I will be able to show you are coming from the area of Hope Street near Benevolent and Manning. And those photos and those videos were retrieved around 2 p.m. on Saturday the 13th. And we believe that that's the same individual that we showed you from the previous video that we released. The public is encouraged to use the tip line, which is pretty active. We have a tip line which is staffed with officers from the Providence Police, as well as analysts, and they're taking calls as we speak. And we want the public to use that information that they have that may be beneficial to this investigation. They need to call 401-272-3121 +0. That was going to direct you in order to provide the tips that you are providing to us. As well, you can access the FBI website at fbi.gov /Brown University shooting. Please, I'm going to ask you all to follow our channels to stay appraised of what's going on and to stay accurate. There's a lot of channels and a lot of stuff that's going out there that's circulating the wrong info. And I told you when I first met you that there's appropriate info, there's accurate info, and it's going to come from us. So I please and plead with you that you access those type of channels. Again, we're asking for the public assistance in identifying this individual that we're about to show you, and we'll release this video on Twitter, and our Twitter account momentarily. I'm going to turn to the video behind us. I'll be able to show you in 2 seconds. Officer Mangan, if you can just activate the, put the videos up. That we're showing you. This is the individual walking. It's on the sidewalk of Benevolent. And this is prior to the incident. Here we go again with is this video too, Mike. Again, you see him walking. Go on to the third video. This is some photos of this individual. And they will all be time stamped. The last photo. Thank you. So we'll be providing this as well, and I ask you all to please make sure you put them up, and then anybody in the public that has any info about this individual, we ask that you call our tip line, and we'll also have the numbers in the website listed. Mayor?
And we will certainly keep you posted as we get more out of the Providence, Rhode Island area regarding that Brown University shooting. Meantime, continuing to follow that breaking news out of Salisbury, North Carolina. We are now just moments away from an update from fire officials after an explosion at a home on Laurel Street injured 11 firefighters, all 11 in the hospital as we speak, getting treatment. We are expecting, as we mentioned, an update bottom of the hour, so 7:30. Stay tuned. We'll have much more on the other side of the break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hey folks, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We are following that breaking news out of Salisbury, North Carolina, an explosion at a home as firefighters were on scene trying to put out a fire at that house. 11 firefighters injured as we speak. We're told they are at the hospital getting treatment. That information coming from the Salisbury Fire Department itself, which posted about this fire that they got a call about just before 5 o'clock this evening. As you can see, 1100 block of Laurel Street. As we mentioned, this is rather close to I-85. If you look at it on a map, it's definitely plausible that folks passing by the interstate probably even saw massive plumes of smoke. You can see there's a look at the maps in the area in general as we speak. You can see some delays kind of around the major thoroughfares that are closest to what we can deduce is some sort of neighborhood. We don't know if it's a formal subdivision, but we do know that this was happening at a residence. So we want to let you know that we are keeping an eye on more information that is set to come in just moments. So bear with me. I do keep refreshing our feed here just to make sure that that briefing hasn't come on since we've rejoined with you following the commercial break. I do not see it quite yet. But we wanted to mention this, and we kind of alluded to this. We've got new images to actually show you of the situation. So shortly after taking over for Brad Panovich, our chief meteorologist here, he's wrapping up his weather stream at 6:30, and we were transitioning here to Live Impact at 7. He mentioned, hey, I think I saw the explosion and the fire on the radar. And so he actually sent us this image. You can see it there. It's in our double box. And that blip there you see, our producer, James Brierton, informs me the kind of like the squares that are kind of greenish, khaki colored and blue. That is allegedly the smoke plume itself. And we kind of had to pause it because there's a moment in time where there's nothing on the radar and then those boxes, those squares kind of pop up. And it's interesting to see because I know James was trying to get us some more information on the actual, numbers of how tall this plume of smoke was, and he's still working on that. But I said, well, what time was that around? And it looks like it was around 5:25-ish.
That's correct, Vanessa.
Okay, so what we're seeing essentially is this fire dispatch just before 5 o'clock. It was specifically, I can pull up the information, 5:56, and then approximately 30 minutes later, this big plume of smoke. So I am curious to see whether that big plume showing up on the radar times out with the actual explosion. Is that the explosion that we're actually catching here on the radar?
Yeah, I can play this.
Okay, so
but
James is going to play it.
Yeah, it is going to be kind of hard to see.
Because it'll move quickly. But now that you know what the squares look like.
I can make it a little bit bigger here. So I'll play it, and you can see.
And this is looping, right?
This is looping. Let me zoom it out. Let me slide it up the screen a little so you can actually see those timestamps at the bottom of the screen. This is coming from a radar that is really in charge of monitoring Charlotte Douglas International Airport, and this is kind of like the extreme reach of this radar.
There it is.
But you can see that little blip that kind of shows up just here to the east of Salisbury, almost over Spencer.
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, because
so nothing there.
Right, and the winds were blowing from the south to the north at about 5 to 10 miles an hour, which probably explains why we're seeing it closer to Spencer than we are Salisbury, because what the radar is really showing us is what is happening at about 1,200 feet above the ground. That's where the weather radar is monitoring. Mm-hmm. That's the altitude of the radar beam at that particular location. So by the time the smoke kind of climbs and then travels with the wind, by the time it's detectable, it was closer to the Spencer area. So that would have brought that smoke and the haze to communities north of where this fire was taking place.
Yeah, totally makes sense. The other thing we should mention, and we did mention this earlier in the hour, but just to recap, since we might have some new folks joining us, does sound like this was related to a gas line, because you might be wondering, well, where did this explosion come from? Apparently, the gas line exploded inside the home where they were fighting this fire. That led to a compromise of the structural integrity of the home, and the roof then collapsed. And so once again, that resulting as well in the 11 firefighters being injured. And we pointed out the fact we don't know their conditions yet. We're hoping to hear that at any moment when that live feed begins out of the Salisbury Fire Department. We're told this is a firehouse they're going to be doing the briefing at, not specifically the scene where the explosion happened. So we've got a crew headed to the actual scene, and we're monitoring this feed from Salisbury Fire to see how are these firefighters doing? What is the nature of their injuries? And also, were their injuries related directly to the explosion? So are we talking about burns or, things of that nature? Or is it related primarily to the roof collapse, which we know can be equally dangerous in some situations? So we will wait to see what authorities say on that front. Just keep refreshing the feed. I don't want to miss anything. James, if you have any insights, let me know too. Feel free to jump in.
Well, this is the coldest morning of the year. Many of us woke up to temperatures here in the Piedmont, 15, 20 degrees, even colder up in the mountains. So at 6:30 on Live Impact Weather, Brad Panovich and Tim Buckley, the chief meteorologist from our station in Greensboro, we're talking just about heating safety. And while it's too early to know exactly what may have caused this particular fire, the thought process, of course, goes to when it's cold, people turn to heat sources, whether that be electric, that be fire places, or anything of that nature. So we sometimes see an uptick in the number of fires, and certainly we'll wait to find out exactly what caused this fire, also what caused the gas line to explode. But Vanessa, when I think about a gas line exploding, we have had here in the Charlotte area other instances of gas lines
I was just thinking that.
And in 2019, we had a home explode in the Ballantine area here in South Charlotte. It wasn't fire related, but a couple had come home after being out of town for a few days. Their house was all locked up, windows and doors were closed. They unknowingly had a gas leak while they were out. They came home, turned the light switches on, started moving through the home. And fortunately, there was an explosion that killed one of the two people in this couple in South Charlotte. But I actually was down the street when that home exploded, and it's loud. A gas explosion of that nature, it feels almost like an earthquake because you hear it and you can feel it. And it would seem likely to me that lots of folks around Salisbury probably heard, felt, or eventually smelt some of the smoke from this fire as it was burning there during that 5 and 6 o'clock hour, Vanessa.
Well, that's a great point, because I remember for sure the coverage that we had following that fire, an explosion in Ballantine, and there was one that's actually more recent, which we heard from officials they say was more nefarious in nature. And I don't know, James, if you remember from earlier this year in May, there was a home in Dilworth that exploded, and there were 2 people that were hurt, and fire officials actually say that fire was intentionally set. We did some digging in the course of several weeks afterwards. We found out that the house was on the market, and so there was something going on with that potentially. But officials nevertheless said that there was an intentionality behind that specific explosion and that fire that was set. And that actually injured a firefighter and a civilian in the area. And I remember, to kind of, double down on what you were saying about neighbors in the area probably hearing or smelling smoke or whatnot. We remember going out to that neighborhood in May after the explosion had happened and hearing from neighbors that talked about feeling it. And even, I believe there were even actual impacts to neighbors' homes. And I'm trying to pull up our archives to see if there was any specific information I can bring on that. Yeah. Another person said the explosion shook her home, actually shook it. And yeah, we were hearing from folks who definitely felt the impacts just being around in the same area as that explosion. Going to refresh one more time, just make sure we're not missing anything from Salisbury Fire in their live feed. Still not seeing anything. Just want to recap, though, for folks who are joining us here on Live Impact. Really big breaking scene that we are keeping an eye on out of Salisbury, North Carolina. This is an area that is quite a bit north of Charlotte, but we are seeing 11 firefighters injured because of a situation that has played out there. This is a fire scene that became an explosion when a gas line exploded as firefighters were there trying to put the fire out. This happened around 5 o'clock, and those 11 firefighters injured following the explosion and the roof collapsing, now getting treatment as we speak at a local hospital. Still waiting to hear about their conditions. Bottom of the hour, so 7:30 was when we were supposed to get an update from actual authorities. They were going to give a press conference, if you will. And we were following a feed that they were going to actually put that press conference on. So as soon as I see that go live, we'll definitely go to that. I know we're coming up close to quarter hour, so let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes, potentially with more on Salisbury. We're always going to follow that, of course, but we also have a few other feeds we're keeping an eye on around the area. So stay with us here on Live Impact News. All right, folks, we are following some breaking news here in the Live Impact News studio. We want to kind of preface this next feed we're about to bring to you live with the fact that we are following that explosion and fire out of Salisbury, North Carolina, the one that injured 11 firefighters. We're actually going to bring you live images of a fire in progress. This is happening in San Francisco. So we just want to reiterate, because I know we've been talking a lot about fires over the last 45 minutes or so, that this is not the Salisbury fire. This is out of San Francisco, but the images are very stunning. So let's get to this right now. We are still trying to get more information about this, just to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain. We've got a lot of live feeds that we monitor throughout the evening here on Live Impact News. They come to us from all over the nation. They're from our affiliates, and we're kind of just able to watch in and see. For example, this helicopter feed, we were watching for the last, let's say, 40 minutes or so, and it was at a different scene. There's actually a cable car incident that injured 14 people not too far from this, and our producer James Brierton noticed that it looked like they just kind of panned the camera around and flew not too far away from the cable car scene and came upon this fire. So we are trying to figure out actively where this is happening. I know James is great with aviation information. So did you find the chopper?
I did find the chopper, Vanessa. So let's quickly put up on the screen right now Flight Radar 24, one of those publicly accessible consumer-grade flight tracking websites. In the San Francisco area, we're looking at the flight tracker for the news helicopter that is providing these live images. As Vanessa mentioned, they were over, and you can see that by the circling that they were doing here on their flight path, closer to the Chinatown area, the incident that involved a trolley car. We were monitoring it, didn't seem worthwhile to bring to you, but then they kind of take this short little trip south, and now they are circling a gas station here in the San Francisco area, and so this kind of puts us in the area of 16th Street. If you're familiar at all with San Francisco, just south of Market Street. The helicopter is right overhead right now. And the scene that I can see, Vanessa, is we've got a gas station, we've got some construction equipment, we've got a big hole in the ground and a tank, presumably the tank that would hold gas for the gas station. I'm concluding, but I'm only speculating, based on the fact that we've already got a hole dug here and like a backhoe or an excavator. I wonder if they were doing work at this Shell gas station. We can see that there's a fence already up. So I wonder if this is a situation that unfolded while construction work was ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great guess. I have no idea. The other thing that I'm wondering is if there was literally like some sort of explosion and the earth was unearthed around the tanker that held all that gas. But it's hard to tell. We just don't know right now.
Now, they're very close to some other buildings. This looks like a residential structure at the top of your screen there, but there are some firefighters right next to that residential structure, and they appear to be spraying water. I presume it's possible it could be a foam substance on what look to be some additional tanks on the surface. And as the helicopter continues to do its orbit, as news helicopters so often do, we might be able to get another glimpse. There were like 3 or 4 white, I don't know if they were tanks, I don't know if they were electric chargers, I'm not sure what they were, but we'll see it here in a second as this helicopter pans back around. So in addition to trying to contain this fire, I think they're trying to keep it from spreading, and that's a little bit of what we see right now in terms of the firefighting and the spraying of water here in the San Francisco area, and there again is a look inside that tank, and it might be too smoky or too hazy right now to try to see those additional tanks on the surface level that I was seeing before, but my brain was thinking, sometimes you go to a gas station, but they might also sell propane, or they might also sell something else off to the side in a convenience store. I don't know what they were. I can't see them now, but there seems to be this big tank under the ground that's on fire, and then there was a couple other tanks on the surface level that they were spraying down with water to try to keep cool. But again, this is a residential neighborhood here in the San Francisco area, a big fire here that seems to have just kind of played out in live time. Again, the news helicopter going from one breaking news scene to the next.
And the other thing, I know we said this, I'm going to say it again. I know, because we have the graphic up for the Salisbury fire. This is not the Salisbury fire, and I know I just want to be super clear, just because the circumstances, like the general overtone of the stories seem to be similar. Fire, some sort of potential explosion, who knows? But the live images are coming from San Francisco. And we are still monitoring separately a home explosion that happened in Salisbury, North Carolina, that injured 11 firefighters. I do want to let folks know, and I know we promised this, back at the bottom of the hour, 7:30, that there was going to be a press conference. We have not seen anything come up yet on the feed where Salisbury Fire said they would be doing the update. So we are reaching out to them just to make sure that everything is going okay, in the sense that we don't want to be missing something, any sort of update that we could be bringing to you live, or any sort of, new detail or new nugget that we can share. Because I know, and I'm seeing it in the comments, because I posted this on social media as soon as we've got word that this was happening, and I see it on the social feeds for the Salisbury Fire Department. Lots of people are very concerned, as they should be and would be, for these firefighters who were injured, just not knowing the nature of their conditions, whether it's a serious injury, whether these are going to be minor injuries. We don't know, and I know a lot of folks want to know that information. Just checking in with our crew really quickly. Our crew actually should be getting to the Salisbury area any minute.
Yeah, logistically, a delay of the news conference does give us an additional time to make that drive from Charlotte to Salisbury. But again, we're expecting that city officials are going to be live streaming this news conference, so we'll be able to bring it to you here on Live Impact News regardless. But we do have a crew en route who will be gathering information, getting answers to their own questions here very soon. Many questions that you have, we also have. We've just lost a shot out of San Francisco, but we'll try to bring that back.
Yes. Okay. Probably a good time for a break, just because I'm seeing, if we take the break now, maybe on the other side we'll have something for folks, and we want to try to avoid taking a break in the middle of any sort of press conference if we can. So let's do that. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the very latest from Salisbury, and of course any other live feeds that we see around the nation. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. All right, folks, continuing to follow this breaking news out of Salisbury, North Carolina. We just got an update from the fire department that 7:30 press conference has been pushed now to 8 o'clock. So presumably we are still just minutes away from getting an update, but that is the nature of the hiccup here. So it wasn't anything technological on our end, which I'm glad to hear. It is a delay in the actual fire department putting together the details and getting that out. So once again, 8 p.m., And we'll definitely carry that for you live here on Live Impact as soon as we see anybody take the podium or stand in front of the mics, et cetera. We've got a crew that, as we mentioned, on the way to the scene, should be arriving within a couple of minutes, really. So more information on multiple fronts to come. And we'll just kind of recap, since I know we're getting close to the top of the new hour here at 8 o'clock. We might have some new folks joining us now on Live Impact. This is a scene that started just before 5 o'clock in Salisbury, Laurel Street, 1100 block, kind of close to the I-85 areas we mentioned. There was a large plume of smoke that we caught on radar, and we're kind of guessing that if you or you know anybody who was driving past the area, even if it's on the interstate around that time, you probably saw this large plume of smoke. And our producer, James Brierton, kind of pointed out for us the fact that you see nothing, nothing, nothing. And then kind of over the Spencer area, you see a big chunk of blocks. So there, I know it goes fast, right there.
Yeah,
And then right there again. So the big chunk of blocks that are kind of like gray, khaki color, and blue over Spencer. Perfect. Thank you, James. Pause that for us. That is the plume of smoke. That information actually came from our chief meteorologist, Brad Panovich, who first broke this for us during the live weather impact stream that was at 6:30. And as we were switching out crews here in the impact studio, Brad happened to mention, he's like, hey, I saw that explosion on the radar, and we were able to get a snapshot essentially of that. So that's what we were able to see kind of around the time potentially that this explosion happened. It definitely coincides correctly with the time frame, because 4:56, so just before 5, but 4:56, that is when fire crews were dispatched to this home. And the plume of smoke that we see on the radar was approximately 30 minutes later. So we are wondering, and maybe fire officials will answer this question for us in the next couple of minutes or so, will let us know whether that is the timing of when the explosion happened. Like, if that is the explosion, are we seeing it right there at that moment on the radar? Of course, the other big question that we're seeing, how the firefighters are doing, because we mentioned this before, 11 firefighters were reported injured because of this explosion. There was also a roof collapse that happened after the explosion, which the fire department said was because of the structural integrity failing following the explosion. And all those firefighters that were injured, 11 of them had to go to the hospital. We don't know their conditions, the nature of their injuries, and the other question we had was whether it was injury related to the actual explosion. So are we talking about burns? Are we talking about, you know, crushing injuries in the sense that this is from the roof collapse that we're seeing most of the injuries from? We're going to be looking to see if any of those questions get answered in now 5 minutes by our count here, if everything goes on now as what is now planned for this press conference. Because we did see, and you know, understandably so, we see this sometimes with, you know, agencies, first responder agencies, as they try to gather information. This is a very chaotic scene. You know, they're trying to gather all the details so that they can provide it to the media and to the public. They want to make sure that they're getting everything right. Of course, there's that added element of you have staff members, firefighters who are injured, so these are people that you work with, and you have, you know, the fire chief or whoever's coming out, public information officer, who's probably trying also to be sensitive to those firefighters. You know, their families. You don't want to release any information that might be, you know, really tough news to get. You don't want to release it through the news, if you will, through the media. So if there's something really, really serious that they need to share about these firefighters, God forbid, we hope that's not the case, that these are just, we hope that these are just minor injuries, but you don't want family members to find that out on the news. You want them to find out directly from you first, and then you can get that information out to the public. So we don't know if that's the case in this situation, but we first saw the press conference scheduled for 7. It got pushed to 7:30. Now it's at 8. So they're seemingly trying to get everything in order before they go live, if you will, with that information. So we're going to stay tuned for the very latest on that. And we kind of, it's been wild. James, I'm watching those, look at the images from San Francisco.
Yeah, we can go back out to San Francisco here.
This has been a wild day for fires, and we'll just reiterate once again, this is a live feed from San Francisco, California, so this is not the Salisbury fire, but this is another fire scene. And we were kind of wondering if this was an explosion of sorts, because as our producer James Brierton pointed out, this is a Shell gas station. There's some sort of like tank here, which we think could be a tank that holds gas under the ground. And all the concrete that's over the tank is now gone. It's like blown out of this hole.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out, was it blown out? Was it dug out? Because we saw some construction construction.
Yeah, we don't
equipment.
know.
Yeah, what I am feeling more confident in now is that this is foam and not just water. 'Cause
Oh,
we were
absolutely.
trying to figure that out before, but the way it's coating onto the surface here makes me think they're using a foam that would help them put out a fire that is being fueled by fuel
Some sort
gas.
of combustible materials.
Combustible, yeah. We also see firefighters on the roof now of that, what I presume to be residential building here on the left-hand side of your screen, kind of getting an aerial view. It does seem, Vanessa, that the nearby structures are not damaged in any way. And so as we're trying to figure out whether this hole was made intentionally or not, it is an interest to me to see that those buildings presumably appear undamaged. But I'm sure those firefighters on the roof right now are making us an assessment as to the structural integrity.
Yeah, and this is a wild scene in the sense that we came across it by accident.
We did.
You know,
We
just
were
watching the feeds.
You know, we watch dozens of feeds here in the Live Impact News Center. We bring you the best of the best, and we looked down and we saw this feed out of San Francisco.
And the news affiliate who's providing these images to us just posted their story.
Okay.
There was an explosion at the gas station. This is the Mission District. This is a Shell gas station. Sounds like an underground tank might have exploded.
Oh, wow.
Really preliminary information. It's a very short article that they've just posted. And I keep checking to see the updates from San Francisco Fire because they've been pretty busy. We mentioned that we were actually watching this San Francisco feed because the chopper was previously, moments before we saw the fire, over a cable car incident. The cable car came to a really rough stop, and there were 14 to 15, so 15 patients that were evaluated on scene, 14 who were actually injured because of that situation. So that was a rather large scene, but fire department put out information about that. That was about their last update 20 minutes ago. They have yet to address this on their feed, so I guess we'll see if they decide to add that information, but they're very busy.
Yeah, busy night in San Francisco. Just listening to you describe the number of injuries in the cable car incident, I can only imagine those injuries may have come from people on the cable car.
Yes.
And so that is something we'll keep a close eye on. You know, Vanessa, we were talking a lot just about fires in general that have been happening, and we had a fire today in Matthews. Let me see if I can get this to play. And so this is near I-45 in the Brightmoor community. I was there this morning with a photographer here from WCNC, Kevin Wardlaw, and so they sent Charlotte Fire Department, Matthews Fire Department, Stallings Fire Department, all down because this was a building here that was in a community called Brightmoor. And so it was a small structure used for concession and storage at the pool, the community pool here off of Brightmoor Drive. They were concerned, firefighters were concerned that there may have been pool chemicals in the area. But once we were able to get a little bit closer to the scene here in Matthews this morning, we were able to conclude that the building that was labeled as having stored the hazardous materials such as the pool chemicals appeared to be untouched. But firefighters, again, from 3 different fire departments, responded to the Matthews area this morning for a smoke plume that was visible from I-45. This is actually video I shot from the I-45 overpass for Pleasant Plains, and you could see that large smoke plume here, very visible to drivers on the inner and the outer loop of 485 this morning.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of uncanny considering the fact that this latest fire is something that probably could have been visible as well to folks passing by. We showed you the earlier map showing the Laurel Street fire in Salisbury, kind of where it would be in proximity to the interstates, right near 85. So there you can see the pin is the actual scene itself, and obviously the larger green stripe is the interstate just to the south there. And we noticed too that there appear to be some minor closures. I'm not going to, puff this up and say it was a major thoroughfare closed, but it looked like one of the larger arteries that were leading to the neighborhood where the actual explosion took place. It looked like there were some sort of blockages happening, or fire crews might be keeping folks away from the scene. Understandably, if you have a gas explosion, you don't want any more folks to get hurt. You want to make sure that the scene is secured, and you don't want, I guess, random people coming up trying to take a look and see what's going on at the scene.
Right.
So
I have some new weather information out of the Salisbury area.
Okay.
We were talking about that radar image that Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich shared with us. Vanessa, here are some weather observations from the Salisbury area. A couple things that I find interesting around the time of the fire. So again, we had winds blowing out of the south between 5 and 10 miles an hour. So you can kind of see those here in the third column, south from 7, south from 6. That means winds from the south blowing north. That's why we were seeing that smoke plume on radar to the north of where the actual fire was, as the smoke was climbing in altitude and then blowing northwards towards Spencer. But take a look here at the temperature. So 28-degree air temperature, but now the wind chill is down to 23 degrees. So firefighters battling fire, spraying water onto this fire, trying to work through wind chill temperatures of 23 degrees. Today marks the coldest day for many of us here in the Carolinas out of the whole year so far. The morning low this morning in Salisbury was 11 degrees.
Wow. Yeah, and you were talking about the fact that the cold is kind of bringing up the fact that there could be some complications with heating, and heating is something that folks are going to be thinking about, and I don't know if they're putting extra efforts into heating, and there's a lot of things that can come with that. And I know this is somewhat of a tangent, but I know every single year we talk about generator safety, and there's a lot of things that can kind of crop up as a concern or a danger this time of year, kind of on the fire front.
It was a concern in my house last night. We have a fireplace insert that sits inside of our fireplace, so we were able to close that door, which allowed me to feel some comfort in going to bed last night with a small fire still going in there. But I didn't necessarily refuel that fire with all fresh wood. But I will tell you, Vanessa, like 12 hours later, when I got up this morning, I was like, you know what? It's cold out. Let me start another fire fresh this morning. I went to go in there and I started moving some of the ash around. There were still hot coals in my fireplace.
Oh, wow.
Some 12 hours later. So certainly, like you said, something to be thinking about here during this cold weather stretch we're having.
Yeah, and we are keeping an eye on that podium where fire officials could be taking the podium any minute now to get an update. I think we'll try again. Take a quick break because we don't want to have to take a break in the middle of any sort of press conference. So we'll be back in 2 minutes with either this live feed or any new details that we managed to glean from the situation out of Salisbury, North Carolina. Thank you for sticking with us and bearing with us too. We'll be back. Hi, everyone. We continue to follow breaking news here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Right now, we are monitoring a feed out of Salisbury, North Carolina, where at any moment we expect officials to take a podium and give an update on an explosion that happened at a home just before 5 o'clock, an explosion which caused a roof to collapse and also injured 11 firefighters. You're looking at the latest update from Salisbury Fire. They did put it out on their Facebook page, but they are promising in just a few moments an in-person update with reporters we can see gathering at this firehouse that is nearby, where officials are going to tell us more. But you can see preliminary information. Fire reported just around 5 o'clock. They arrived within 4 minutes. Very, very heavy fire conditions as they kind of describe it here. There was a gas line that exploded inside the residence that compromised the structure integrity, and then the roof collapsed. And so they say that because of the explosion, these 11 firefighters were injured. They did not elaborate on their conditions, only to say they had to go to the hospital for treatment, and they will be giving more information. Speaking of which, we are working to see if we can get that feed. I think it's coming. Bear with us, please. I do see what looks to be an official there. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and listen in. Once again, Salisbury, North Carolina, Salisbury Fire Department giving us an update on this house explosion where 11 firefighters were injured.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for your concern for the firefighters and the residents of Salisbury. I'm Bob Cornell, I'm the fire chief here in Salisbury, P-A-R-N-E-L-L, last name. The Salisbury Fire Department was dispatched to a house fire. The address was 1143 Laurel Street at 4:56 p.m. this afternoon. Firefighters arrived on the scene within 4.5 minutes and found a well-involved single-family, single-story residential house, well involved to the rear. So there's a lot of fire coming up when they got there, and they went into a working fire mode and also an offensive search mode. That's where the firefighters go in to extinguish the fire, and their primary mission is get water on the fire and search for any occupants. While they were inside that fire, during this offensive attack, something exploded. An unknown source of explosion happened in the house. It was enough force that the outside walls blew out, the roof came up and went back down, and the firefighters inside had, while they were heroically searching for the house, had received injuries typical of stuff falling on them, around them, and at them, right, being projected at them. We immediately went into Mayday mode. That is a planned, trained, exact procedure when something happens of this nature. They Mayday. Firefighters rescued other firefighters. The rapid intervention team activated, pulled firefighters out. As a result of that explosion inside this house, 11 firefighters were transported to local hospitals, some to Rowan and some to Northeast Medical Center in Cabarrus County. 11 firefighters of Salisbury were transported and treated. One also from Spencer Fire Department who was on the scene assisting us. Glad to report, I'm elated to report that none of the injuries were life-threatening. Some firefighters are being treated for contusions, concussions, and smoke inhalation because while they were wearing their mask, the concussion blew the mask off their face. None of them are life-threatening. In fact, we just visited Rowan Regional Medical Center and visited with the firefighters there. They are all in good spirits. Some of them have already been released. And we suspect all will be released tonight. Not sure about the firefighters in Concord. We will be reporting down there to Northeast Medical Center after this news conference to check on them. Although I do want you to know that the chaplains of the Salisbury Fire Department, thankfully, are at the hospital, both hospitals, monitoring their conditions and feeding information back and forth to me and our staff. I want to thank the various agencies across Rowan County who are assisting us. They're assisting us on the scene. They're assisting us at the fire stations, filling the fire stations, keeping services for the citizens of Salisbury at a high level. They also assisted us with going to the fire scene, going to the hospitals, going to the fire scene, and making sure that our members are well taken care of, the families are taken care of, transporting over the family members. Cause of the fire is under investigation. I've already seen on social media somebody said it's gas explosion. That's not confirmed. It's not determined yet. There is an investigation by the Salisbury Police Department, Salisbury Fire Department, North Carolina Fire Marshal's Office, and other agencies, which is normal in this case. This is normal protocol. You have injuries. We certainly have a full force investigation of a high nature. 2 civilians were also transported. At this time, that's all I can tell you. I don't know the conditions, and if I knew, I couldn't tell you. So we do know that 2 were transported. Red Cross was called to the scene to take care of 8 occupants from this house. So I want you to know that we appreciate the local chapter of the Red Cross for taking care of our citizens and taking care of the residents. That's all I got for you.
Chief, were you out there by chance, or?
I responded. I was not there yet when the explosion occurred, but yes, I've been on the fire scene since.
You've talked to your guys at the hospital, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So how did they describe it to you? Did they say, hey, Chief, or can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I'll qualify it like this. They all said we were doing and I listened on the radio, they were doing exactly what firefighters do, exactly what our protocols are for a structural fire of that nature. They were on the roof cutting holes, they were dragging hose lines from the front to the back to extinguish the fire, and they were searching for the occupants, because if anybody was left in that smoke-filled house, they wanted to get them out. And just all of a sudden, an explosion occurred. No notice, no warning, it just happened, and that's what they're telling us happened.
How many of you guys, and I don't know if the Spencer guy, were they actually all in the house, the 11, or was it some people got hurt on the outside?
Yeah, you're going to have to let us...
It's early.
Critique and review all that. Some were in and around, and the walls blew out, so it's a brick facade. They blew out, so anybody that was around the house got hit by the facade bricks and wood and that kind of thing. So,
and I'm assuming somebody was living at this house. So
they were living in the house and in the house when the fire first started. So.
Yes. Every scene can be dangerous, but how common is a risk of an explosion like this to happen when fighting fire at a home?
Yeah, I won't be able to quantify that. It doesn't happen often, but we know it's a possibility. That's the right. You watch firefighters open up or break windows or open up or cut the roof. That's to let the pressure out, let the smoke out, let the heat out, and that's what they had done. And that's an effort to prevent smoke explosion or another type of explosion. So
today, how large is the department overall? How many folks?
So on duty we had 22 members on duty, so half the shift.
Was there any damage to any surrounding homes?
Yeah, a nearby house did sustain a little bit of fire and heat damage. Yes.
What did you tell your guys when you got to the hospital? What did you say to them?
They really spoke with me first and said, man, I'm good. I'm ready to get back on the fire truck. Can I go back tonight? Right? Mr. Green, the city manager's here. He was also there when I got there. Some city council members were there checking on their members. As I mentioned, our chaplains were there. And most of them just wanted to, one, check on how everybody else was doing. They care about others and their coworkers. They cared about the civilians. They wanted to know how the civilians were. And they said, I'm ready to get back on the truck tonight. And we had to tell them, no, you do what the doctor says do. Just like a firefighter, I would expect any firefighter to do.
Just for clarification, the 2 civilians that you mentioned that were transported to the hospital, were they inside of the house at the time of the fire?
I just can't quantify that or confirm or deny any of that at this point. But thank you for asking.
Chief, is that the mayor right there?
This is the city manager.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that might have been
the mayor has been in contact with us, has very high concern, has reached out many times, as has many of the council members, but the mayor's not here, nor council members here right now.
How much was the fire contained before the explosion happened?
So we have a radio announcement on the radio when they get water on the fire. That tells us that one of the hose lines, we had 3 hose lines in operation. One of them was getting the fire knocked down. The radio broadcast also told the outside commander told the inside crew, it looks good, you're starting to get a knock. Typical terminology for us, and that's when the explosion happened.
And so was the fire under control at that time?
No, it was not declared under control. It was still a working fire incident.
Chief, I know it's early stages of the investigation. We expect this to go throughout the night, and are any of the other residents surrounding areas going to be affected?
So nobody else, that house was displaced, the occupants of that house. The others are not displaced. I won't be able to tell you how long this investigation may go. It could be days or weeks, actually. Salisbury Police Department, Fire Marshal's Office, and the State Fire Marshal's Office and Salisbury Fire Marshals are investigating. They started an investigation on the scene immediately.
When you get that kind of call that so many of your guys are injured, what's going through your head?
Thanks for your asking. What is really the concern for those firefighters and their families. And we immediately go into mode of checking all of them, checking with them face to face. Myself and my staff, we were there checking on them, asking how they were doing, and that's what goes through our mind, checking on our folks and making sure they're okay. Thank you.
Obviously, nothing can be routine all the time. Like, how do you kind of prepare your guys for unexpected situations like this? Obviously, you can't prepare for everything, but how do you kind of prep them as best as you can?
Yeah, thank you. So the preparation is extensive. Our training programs are extensive. I mentioned that we went into Mayday mode, Mayday protocol. That is taught to every rookie school and practiced biannually, to every on-duty in-service fire company. So that the mode is second nature in regards to going into Mayday and checking on everybody, rescuing those that needed rescue, and doing a PAR check, a personal accountability report, so we account for everybody, and that was done very quickly. The incident commander did a great job of orchestrating the radio traffic and the protocol.
Do you have a message to the Salisbury community tonight?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important to know that anybody's house, firefighters are going to go get them, right? We are there to go get them. We have a search mentality, a search culture. And so if there's a fire, if there's a danger, we're going to go get them, even sometimes at some risk. And that's what tonight proved, right? That your firefighters in Salisbury are heroic in my eyes, and they proved it tonight. And so that's the message is, anywhere in Salisbury at any time, these firefighters, male and female, these guys are ready and trained to go do what they do. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. That'll conclude unless there's just one more question. Okay.
The hospitals you mentioned again, what were the 2 hospitals?
Yeah, Rowan Regional Medical Center and Atrium Northeast in Concord.
So not Novant. Novant was not one of those.
I'm sorry, Rowan Regional Medical Center is a Novant facility.
Okay,
So
so
Novant,
right down here.
Yes, right down here.
Okay.
Yes, and then Atrium down in Concord. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for your concern. Is that right?
All right, folks, so you just heard it there from Fire Chief Bob Purnell in Salisbury, North Carolina, giving an update on this home explosion from just before 5 o'clock this evening, one which injured several firefighters, and we are now learning a couple of civilians as he described them. So here's kind of what we're seeing. As far as conditions, some good news regarding the firefighters from Salisbury Fire, and we'll just kind of keep in mind, because he mentioned this in the press conference just a moment ago, the 11 firefighters who are injured we're talking about are from Salisbury. From what we understand, there were other agencies, other fire departments that were providing mutual aid from nearby jurisdictions, and there might be other updates that we might be getting about firefighters from them. But he said he can only speak for the 11 Salisbury firefighters who were injured. Non-life-threatening injuries, he says most of the injuries are bruises, concussions, smoke inhalation. He says some of the firefighters have already been released. He does expect all of his firefighters to be released tonight, though. So that kind of does paint that picture of how serious these injuries are, in the sense that they are able to be released tonight. So that gives us kind of an idea of where we stand as far as the severity. He did talk about 2 civilians being transported to the hospital. He said unknown conditions. He said he wouldn't be able to speak on that if he could, but he doesn't have any updates on those folks. Didn't really elaborate either whether they were inside the home in question, or they were nearby, or if they were, somehow in a neighbor's home or something like that. That could be some information that we get shortly. He did say that there was a nearby home that sustained some heat damage, and the State Fire Marshal's office, as well as Salisbury Fire, investigating right now. One of the other points we noticed, which was interesting, because this was actually information that was initially put out by Salisbury Fire itself, the fact that this explosion could have been caused by a gas line, either opening or rupturing, but nevertheless somehow exploding. We heard the fire chief kind of walking that back, saying that they still really need to do some more investigating to figure out exactly what happened. So he didn't seem comfortable, from what we saw with that press conference, in firmly saying that yes, it was a gas line, even though that was one of the initial details that actually came out from the fire department itself shortly after they were able to gather a few details and send out a press release to the media in the area. So we will continue to follow this. As we mentioned, we got that crew there at the scene. They were able to send that feedback to us, and we'll be trying to gather some information and some visuals too of the home in question. If you've been keeping track, this is in what appears to be a residential neighborhood, and impacting potentially, the entire neighborhood, in the sense that you have this home itself that is damaged. You've got a neighbor's home that has some heat damage, and probably a lot of neighbors in the area who are scared and maybe have heard that explosion and wondering what's going on. So we'll keep you updated on the very latest here on Live Impact. James, do you want to take a break? I think we kind of got behind on those, but let's go ahead and do that. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the very latest, and we'll see what new information we can gather in the next couple of minutes. Thanks for sticking with us on Live Impact. Hey folks, thanks so much for staying with us here on Live Impact News as we've been following some breaking news throughout the last couple of hours here. We just in the last several moments got some updates from the fire chief in Salisbury, North Carolina, Bob Parnell, sharing some more details on those firefighters who were injured after a home explosion. Just before 5 o'clock, they were dispatched out to this fire scene, and there was some sort of situation. He kind of walked back the initial reporting that there was a gas line that either opened or ruptured to cause the explosion. He said that they have to kind of determine more information before he feels comfortable saying the gas line was what caused this, but there was an explosion shortly afterwards and the roof collapsed. So 11 Salisbury firefighters transported to the hospital. The good news is non-life-threatening injuries, and it's to the point where the fire chief said he did expect all of his firefighters to be released tonight, so none requiring any overnight stays. He kind of detailed some of the injuries as bruises, concussions. He talked about smoke inhalation, and he did mention the fact that there could be other injuries that we might get some information on, maybe from different agencies, but there was some mutual aid that was happening. So sometimes we see with large scenes or even jurisdictions where they have smaller crews and not a lot of need to have larger crews on standby at all times, they'll bring in aid from neighboring jurisdictions, which is the case here. We heard the chief mentioning that there might be a Spencer firefighter who was injured, but he said he couldn't provide any updates on that firefighter because that's not within his department. He also said that there were 2 civilians transported to the hospital, and he wasn't able to elaborate on their conditions, and also didn't say whether they were inside the home that exploded, were they neighbors, were they just kind of standing in the area. So that's something we're going to try to get some more information on. There was a nearby home that sustained some heat damage, he said, and at this point, they're just in the investigation period. He said the state fire marshal's office is looking into this, and the Salisbury Fire Department is also going to be doing an investigation. Really chaotic and busy scene from what he detailed. We do have a crew there, so we're working on getting some more live reporting for you. But in the meantime, for folks who are just now joining us here on Live Impact, we wanted to roll back some of this update we just got from the fire chief so you can listen along and see some of these details and some of the questions he took from reporters just a few moments ago.
On duty, we had 22 members on duty, so half the shift.
Was there any damage to any surrounding homes?
Yeah, a nearby house did sustain a little bit of fire and heat damage. Yes.
What did you tell your guys when you got to the hospital? What did you say to them?
They really spoke with me first and said, "Man, I'm good. I'm ready to get back on the fire truck. Can I go back tonight?" Right? Mr. Green, the city manager's here. He was also there when I got there. Some city council members were there checking on their members. As I mentioned, our chaplains were there, and most of them just wanted to, one, check on how everybody else was doing. They care about others and their coworkers. They cared about the civilians. They wanted to know how the civilians were, and they said, "I'm ready to get back on the truck tonight." And we had to tell them, "No, you do what the doctor says do." Just like a firefighter, I would expect any firefighter to do.
Just for clarification, the 2 civilians that you mentioned that were transported to the hospital, were they inside of the house at the time of the fire?
I just can't quantify that or confirm or deny any of that at this point. But thank you for asking.
Chief, any chance, is that the mayor right there?
This is the city manager.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought that might have been the mayor.
The mayor has been in contact with us, has very high concern, has reached out many times, as has many of the council members, but the mayor's not here, nor council members here right now.
How much was the fire contained before the explosion happened?
So we have a radio announcement on the radio when they get water on the fire. That tells us that one of the hose lines, we had 3 hose lines in operation. One of them was getting the fire knocked down. The radio broadcast also told the outside commander told the inside crew, "It looks good, you're starting to get a knock." Typical terminology for us, and that's when the explosion happened.
Okay, so was the fire under control at that time?
No, it was not declared under control. It was still a working fire incident.
Chief, I know it's the early stages of the investigation. We expect this to go throughout the night, and are any of the other residents surrounding area is going to be affected?
So nobody else, that house was displaced, the occupants of that house. The others are not displaced. I won't be able to tell you how long this investigation may go. It could be days or weeks, actually. Salisbury Police Department, Fire Marshal's Office, and the State Fire Marshal's Office and Salisbury Fire Marshals are investigating. They started an investigation on the scene immediately.
When you get that kind of call.
All right, so once again, just a little bit of that press conference from just a few moments ago with the Fire Chief Bob Parnell. Our Walker Lawson is out in Salisbury tonight, joining us right now on Live Impact. I know, Walker, you were there for that briefing. What can you tell us about the situation?
Well, yeah, Vanessa, as you know, we've been waiting for a couple hours to kind of find out the status of these firefighters, and thankfully we did hear some good news from the fire chief here, saying that 11 of his firefighters that were transported to local hospitals, none of them have injuries that are life-threatening, as you mentioned, just some concussions, some smoke inhalation, so some other minor injuries. He said that he expects all of them to be released tonight. He was able to visit some of them at the Rowan Hospital up here, so that is the Rowan Regional, the Novant Hospital here. He plans to go and visit some of his other firefighters that are in Concord after this press conference just wrapped up a moment ago. Again, as you mentioned, the cause of the fire remains under investigation. Earlier, we had heard it was potentially from a gas leak. He again did not confirm, said this is still an ongoing investigation at the time. So he said the fire was not under control at the time that the explosion happened, saying that his firefighters were doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and that explosion was unexpected. That led to some brick facade, some brick coming off of the buildings, flying towards some of the firefighters that were out there as well. One home only seeing some fire damage as well. Now, he did say that there were 2 civilians that were transported. Again, we don't know where they were around that fire, when it happened. So again, not confirming their exact conditions either. So at least some sort of good news out of a scary situation here today for firefighters that had to respond to this house fire.
Yeah, it definitely sounded like a really chaotic scene, and to hear that these injuries for the Salisbury firefighters who are injured are non-life-threatening, the fact that a lot of them are going to be released from the hospital tonight is somewhat of a relief to hear. Walker, I know that you're going to be doing some digging around to find more on this story, and no doubt have to check out that neighborhood as well. So we'll let you go. We appreciate you so much, and we will look for your updates later tonight here on WCNC+. All right, folks, and with that, it's time to take a quick break. Just wanted to let you know, for the next couple of minutes, I'm passing the reins to our producer, James Brierton. We are going to do a TV update for folks who are watching us on WCNC Charlotte on the air. So I'm going to move over now to the other studio for just a couple of moments, but when we return, you'll be in the good hands of James Brierton, giving you the very latest on this scene and other headlines that were falling around the region and the nation. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm James Brierton. We have been continuing to follow the breaking news out of Salisbury in Rowan County, where 11 firefighters and 2 others injured tonight in a fire that seemed to prompt an explosion, as you heard right here on Live Impact News a few moments ago from the Salisbury Police Chief, Robert Parnell. They're still trying to determine the cause of that explosion, but it was the Salisbury Fire Department on Facebook that earlier tonight did post that there had been a fire caused by a gas line. The chief telling us they're still looking into that possibility. One way or the other, there was an explosion as firefighters were working to extinguish that fire just after the 5 o'clock hour. Our newsroom has been going through scanner recordings, courtesy of Broadcastify.com, to see if we can get any insight from some of those ongoing firefighting efforts that took place earlier tonight. Here now are some new excerpts.
Medic 851, Medic 881, working fire, 1143 Laurel Street, 1143 Laurel Street, Cross Street, Beard Street, North Shaver Street, confirming multiple entrapments inside the home. Utilize the Ops 3, Ops 4, Ops 0304, timeout at 1712.
I copy. Got 3 firefighters, all conscious.
Needed. Also, see if you can expedite PNG. We have a gas line that is ruptured. They didn't give me any data en route, and they weren't made aware of the situation.
Command also, just make sure where we do have one victim, civilian, out of the house. CPR in progress.
All city coverage needed at 1143 Laurel Street. All city units call back in. Reference to structure fire 1143 Laurel Street. 1721.
Fire that are going to be transported. I've got at least 5 more that need to be evaluated from brick injuries and inhalation. And then I've got Ross on the civilian that was pulled out of the house.
Okay, so to peel back the curtain a little bit, if you've never listened to anything like that before, those audio recordings, which come from a website called Broadcastify.com, are captured from fire department radios, oftentimes collected by volunteers who plug those radios into computers and stream them out to the world. All of the information you heard there is unofficial, because just like when you're talking to your friends or your families and something is happening, sometimes there's rumors, sometimes there's misinformation. All of that is happening in real time, but that gives us a little bit of an insight to what firefighters may have been experiencing. Now, we did hear from the fire chief tonight that 11 firefighters were injured and 2 others. We heard in that recording that somebody inside the home, a non-firefighter, may have been injured and was receiving some sort of medical treatment. Again, that is not information that is confirmed, because it could be incorrect preliminary information at the time of that recording. It could also just be something that officials are still working to determine, and we expect to get an update from them later tonight or tomorrow as this situation continues to develop. So in terms of the information tonight that we are learning, the fire chief telling us that they weren't ready yet to officially release what may have been either the cause of that fire or the state of the injuries. Now, we did hear from Salisbury Fire Chief Robert Parnell that the 11 firefighters from his department who suffered injuries all suffered non-life-threatening injuries and either have been or will be shortly released from the hospital. He did allude to the fact that there was mutual aid, firefighters from other fire departments, including nearby Spencer, North Carolina, that were also on scene assisting, and he made it sound like we might be hearing from those officials later on to confirm whether or not any of their firefighters were injured or the nature of any of those injuries. So we will watch, of course, for information that comes out of that. A lot of times in situations like this, we do see one fire department helping out, backing up another fire department. You actually heard that in the Broadcastify scanner recording that we played for you a few moments ago. You can hear what I presume to be the dispatcher calling back all fire units, all hands, calling in all available resources on shift or possibly off shift to assist with this situation that, again, happened at about 5 o'clock in Salisbury, North Carolina. That's located in Rowan County between Charlotte and Greensboro, just off of Interstate 85. We have a map here. We can show you this was on Laurel Street, just off of Long Street, not too far from Bringle Ferry Road, if you're familiar with the Salisbury area. Again, about an hour north of Charlotte if you go straight up Interstate 85. We are still waiting to find out what the situation at that address is at this hour. But right here on Live Impact News, we just spoke with Walker Lawson, who was at that news conference, which happened at the firehouse. And after speaking with Vanessa moments ago, Walker and his photographer Ben are now en route to the fire scene on Laurel Street, where they will have an update for us coming up at 11 o'clock on the news right here on WCNC Plus. So we look forward to bringing that to you here in the next few minutes. A couple other stories that we have been following here in the Live Impact News Center today. Seattle has had way too much rain in the Pacific Northwest, and we have been seeing days after days now of this atmospheric river causing some life-threatening flash flooding. Well, we did get news today of a levee break there in the state of Washington that was prompting the evacuation for some residents in the area, and officials spoke about that a little bit earlier. Let's take a listen back in.
Thank you so much to our media partners for getting this really important information out. This is a very serious and emerging situation, and we appreciate the role of the media in informing our communities. Around 11:30 a.m. this morning, the Desimone levee on the Green River was breached and caused flooding at Olympic Avenue South in Tukwila behind Rainier Industries. Although this was sudden and caused widespread concern, fortunately no one was injured. In coordination with local mayors across South King County, we have been able to respond quickly, and the levee is in the process of being repaired. I also want to acknowledge the quick action from King County workers who were on site at the time of the breach, and the rapid coordination from the team here at the Emergency Operations Center right behind me. Their dynamic action allowed us to release a quick evacuation notice to keep people safe and rapidly bring together our partners to develop a response plan. Their work is not over, and conditions remain dynamic. As rain returns and water levels continue to rise and change in unpredictable ways, the most important action that residents can take is to please listen to experts, listen to responders, and listen to law enforcement. I mentioned this yesterday when we had our press conference at the levee site on Friday, but if you don't listen to law enforcement and emergency responders when they ask you to leave an area, you are not only putting yourself at risk, you are putting our first responders at risk as well. If you go into a site that says do not go when there is an evacuation notice going, if you enter that area, first responders will have to save you, and that puts them at risk as well. So please heed these warnings. Please follow all instructions to keep you and your families and our first responders safe. If you are advised to leave your workplace or your home, please follow the advice and evacuation to a safe location. Do not drive on closed roads. If you see a sign that says a road is closed, please do not take the risk. Do not try to go around it. Turn around and leave, or else you put yourself at risk for drowning. Quick action can and will save lives. We are thankful for the incredibly hard work of our team members across King County, including the Department of Emergency Management, Department of Natural Resources and Parks, Department of Local Services, and our Sheriff's Office, among many others. We are also thankful for the close coordination with the excellent mayors across King County and with Governor Bob Ferguson. Now
You are listening to a news conference out of King County, Washington that took place just earlier tonight there of life-threatening flash flooding that has been ongoing in that region as a result of days upon days of rain. In just moments, we're going to rejoin Vanessa Rufus here on WCNC Plus with an update on that fire there in Salisbury, North Carolina that did injure 11 firefighters and also apparently 2 other people who were injured in that explosion. We are going to be joining Vanessa as she is doing an update on linear television, on WCNC television. We're going to bring that to you right here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus so that we don't miss any of the latest information that we're bringing to you on all of the platforms. And so we expect to have Vanessa here in just moments as we continue to follow that situation in Salisbury, North Carolina, which occurred at about 5 o'clock.
Some breaking news from Salisbury, where we're hearing a home explosion has injured multiple firefighters. We just got a briefing just a few moments ago from the fire chief, Bob Parnell there, who said that 11 of his firefighters, so 11 Salisbury firefighters, were injured and sent to the hospital after they were called to this home for a fire. So this was a single family residence, we're told. It's on Laurel Street. It's near North Long Street. You're looking at a map right now of where the scene is. And what we're told is this was a fire scene. Fire crews got there within 4 minutes of being dispatched. They noticed really heavy fire conditions. They started to get to work aggressively putting out that fire when something happened, an explosion. And we say something because initial reporting was out there initially from the Salisbury Fire Department itself that there was a gas line that might have opened or ruptured or exploded. The fire chief walking that back several moments ago saying they are still looking into this. It's an unknown source of explosion at this point. And he says some good news about the conditions of his firefighters who were injured, non-life-threatening injuries. Most of those injuries, bruises, concussions, and smoke inhalation, and all of them expected to be released from the hospital tonight. Our Walker Lawson, following this very closely, will have much more for you tonight at 11 on the news and continue.
All right, a little update there from Vanessa Rufus as we were also talking to our TV viewers in WCNC Charlotte. That 11 o'clock newscast will be seen both on television and right here on WCNC Plus. Coming up shortly, as she mentioned, an update from the scene with Walker Lawson. Now, don't go far right here on WCNC Plus because we're going to have more of the evening's breaking news coming up in just moments as we continue on with you. This is Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. You're watching breaking news coverage on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm James Brierton. We're continuing to follow the fire and explosion in Salisbury, North Carolina, which injured 11 firefighters and 2 others. If you're just joining us tonight, it occurred about 5 o'clock there in Rowan County. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich was able to use weather radar technology to actually show us the smoke plume on radar after the 5 o'clock hour. It's kind of hard to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause it right about there. Let's try this one more time. And so what's happening is this fire occurred just on the east side of Salisbury. So just to the right of where you see the word Salisbury on your screen. And winds were blowing from the south to the north at about 5 to 10 miles an hour. And so it's brief, but near the word Spencer, you'll see some teal, blue, brownish color colors, that is actually particles in the air caused by the fire or the explosion, and the radar beam from Charlotte is able to detect them as it's monitoring the atmosphere at about 1,200 feet above the ground. And so for a few minutes, though, the smoke was actually strong enough, it was high enough out in the altitude that the weather radar at Charlotte Douglas International Airport was able to detect it out there in Salisbury, which is a good 60 miles, about a 1-hour drive away from where this radar beam is located. So we are, again, continuing to follow this developing story right now. Another story that we have been watching for you, and we played a little bit of this just moments ago, we're going to take you back to it now from the Seattle, Washington area, King County. Life-threatening flash flooding is continuing to happen in that area because of atmospheric river. Just all of this moisture that is coming in off the Pacific is dumping rain, and that has actually caused, over the course of several days now, flash flooding induced evacuations. A new one today when a levee breached in the King County, Washington area, again the state of Washington, and officials were discussing this a little bit earlier. Let's listen in.
Point that the communications coming from our Office of Emergency Management under the director, Brendan McCluskey, have been exceptional. People have approached me asking where they can get the most up-to-date information, and I want to continue lifting up the website that they are continuing to update, kcemergency.com. Please go to kcemergency.com. There you will find information about this breach that we are talking about today. You'll find information about where people can find shelter. You can find information about how volunteers can help and where they can make contributions toward. Everyone has a role. We can all do our part to keep each other safe, but I just wanted to share that website again, kcemergency.com. And again, thank you to all of our first responders, all of our county officials, all of our levels of government who have been coordinating effectively on this point. And we're happy to take a few questions.
I can't give you an exact one, but I would say it's a matter of hours. There's the wind. That's the short-term fix. We will come back after this event and do a more thorough long-term fix, and we'll probably be doing work on a number of facilities throughout the system after this event is over, when the water's lower and we can assess what damage has been. A lot of the levees have been damaged during this event and are going to need repairs when conditions allow.
So there were signs that this had been having issues as early as Friday?
Yeah.
What those signs were?
Water was appearing on the other side of the levee. So we were seeing water coming through the levee, and we have a couple of levees where we're seeing that happening and we're monitoring them very closely. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's just part of the hydrology. Sometimes it's an indication there's something going on inside the levee that we need to keep an eye on. And I just want to really emphasize this for the public. We were there because we're monitoring these levees very closely. We do not want to have breaches in levees. We're doing everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen, and we're staying ahead of these conditions.
All right, folks, and we continue to follow this breaking news in the Live Impact News studio. Vanessa Rufus, by the way, taking back over from our producer, James Brierton, who, thank you so much, took over as I did an update on TV for our viewers there regarding this explosion that happened at a Salisbury home, one that injured multiple firefighters. And we're hearing now, with this latest briefing from just a few moments ago with the fire chief, sounded like 2 civilians might have been transported to the hospital as well. Unknown conditions for them, but this is a situation where at this hour, we're now seeing this kind of transpiring into an investigation. Looking into the cause of this explosion, there was some initial reporting from the fire department itself that this might have been related to a gas line, but we saw the fire chief recently walking that back, saying that they need to do more looking into this to see definitively what caused the explosion. So stay tuned on that front, what sort of updates we get. Nevertheless, the explosion itself caused the roof to collapse, 11 Salisbury firefighters injured. All non-life-threatening injuries is the good news, and some of the injuries that were outlined, bruises and concussions and smoke inhalation. Some of the firefighters, in fact, already released from the hospital. The fire chief was talking about some of them wanting to actually get back on the truck, go back out and finish up their shifts, and he was like, no, time to take a rest and recover. The other thing that was important to note was the fact that all are expected to be released tonight. So that is some good news to hear. We're still waiting to hear more about these 2 civilians. We don't know if they were actually inside the home at the time or whether they were just nearby. Were they neighbors? Were they standing on the road in the area just kind of watching the scene? We don't know any of that information. And then there was also a question mark that we were left with about potential other firefighters from other agencies that may or may not be injured. We heard the fire chief reference the fact that they had mutual aid from other agencies, including, for example, Spencer Fire. And so he said he could only speak on the conditions and the updates on his firefighters, so just the 11 firefighters from Salisbury Fire Department. So we just want to let folks know that our Walker Lawson is covering this for us tonight. So we're expecting not only an update on the investigation from him, but also more from the actual neighborhood itself. The briefing, just for kind of a little bit of a backstory, happened at the firehouse that was nearby, not at the actual scene. So Walker's going to be checking out the neighborhood at this point to see how things are looking, see what neighbors have to say. We do know that there was one neighbor home, in fact, that was damaged because of this fire, an explosion. Apparently it sustained some heat damage. So that is, something we're seeing as far as impacts that have spread just beyond the house itself that exploded. And we'll be waiting to see Walker's updates for us on the news here at 11 as you keep it here on WCNC Plus. Quickly before our time expires here for Live Impact for the evening, we did want to mention that we do continue to follow everything Panthers. As we know, there was kind of a hiccup in everyone's playoff hopes this past weekend, and now they're kind of forging this new path to see if they can still make it. Our team's going to be talking about all those playoff scenarios, how they look at this hour with the loss to the Saints from Sunday. So that's going to be our next hour of programming for you. And like we mentioned, 11 o'clock, keep it here for the news. We'll have a report for you regarding the Salisbury fire and, of course, your other headlines. Thanks for being with us.